I'm Josh.
I'm Michelle.
And this is Little Bandology, episode 6.
Are you going to let me say, and this is Little Bandology one time? Or are you just
You
going to
just said
always
it.
say it?
You just said it.
But I mean, like, are you going to let me introduce it sometime?
Okay,
Or are you
so
just gonna be the boss?
episode 7, Michelle is going to introduce Little
I'm gonna
Bandology.
practice. And this is Little Bandology. So it can sound like you.
If you sounded like me, that would make our conversations very weird. So, in a previous life, I did a lot of announcing, and so I was the voice of the Lumberjack Marching Band when I was in college. That was fun. I also was the voice of marching contests if they were held at SFA. That was fun. But my favorite announcing gig was all of them were free. I never got paid, but my favorite announcing gig was for Michelle's first job
Oh, right.
in Hardin, Texas.
You turned on
and,
that announcing voice.
I did, and it was
those,
great. I
Those
remember-
country people didn't know what to
Oh
think
my
of him.
gosh! And Hardin, Texas is you go to Livingston, you take a left, and you drive, and then all of a sudden there's a town after you've driven like 30 minutes.
I mean,
Was
I
it
think
that far?
I think it's farther than that. I think there were
45?
a couple towns in between
Oh my gosh.
Livingston and there.
But I'll never forget Bob Smith, who is the band director there, and quite possibly one of the nicest people I've met in my entire life. And he always made us feel really good and used to tell us how awesome we are and what great teachers we were going to be. And I was still in college at that point, but I remember going down and Michelle told Bob that I should announce the marching band. And he said, great. Because I think, did the superintendent do it?
No, I think Bob normally did it.
Like he would go up and,
I don't remember.
that was
a long time ago.
And Bob has since retired.
Yes.
Yes, he's living the high life. But anyway, I remember sitting in the booth and I announced,
He started the announcement
and everybody in the stands like flipped
turned
around
around
and looked
and
up, like, who is this weirdo? And it was fun. I also managed to set things in motion that got their entire drill team disbanded.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So I announced I don't even remember, they're the Hornets,
Right.
but I can't remember what I think I left a name off, or they gave me a handwritten list of names, and I announced them, and I left one off, and the sponsor got mad at Bob.
I don't remember this.
I remember this, and it went like to the superintendent, and the next week when I announced, they didn't perform. So I don't know if it was a one-week
but
thing.
I remember a lot of things kind of getting blown out of proportion there that year. But I don't remember.
I
that.
remember the marching band getting ones.
My biggest memory of that year is Bob and his wife getting in the accident and me having to teach by
yeah.
myself for 2 weeks as a first-year teacher. And
Yeah.
like that was a thrown to the wolves type of situation.
Mhm.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
That was a lot that year.
Mhm.
Bob was a great person to work for, and I learned a lot from him.
And we haven't seen him in a very long time.
Yeah.
But he was always just a wonderful, and the kids loved him. Like he was a kid whisperer,
Yeah.
and he was the epitome of a walking dad joke. He really was.
Like in a
All
good way.
that from announcing, yes, episode 7, Michelle will
I'm
use her
gonna say,
best
and
announcer's
this is
voice.
Little Bandology.
There you go.
Just
That's
like
first
that.
division. Good job.
Thank you.
Exciting announcement, and we haven't told anybody. It's coming out of here first. So,
Yeah. Well, except our kids.
except our kids know,
'cause we
but
have
they're
two
not
teachers,
impressed. And, well, our band kids know.
Right.
And they're also not impressed. They just, whatever. So, two years ago, we did a clinic for
Yes,
TMEA.
2 years. Whoa.
I know. That's the same one we're doing. Updated.
Yes.
This one is much updated. Grow and cultivate your small school band.
Right.
And it was very well received, and it was a happy hour clinic, so it was at 5:00, but people still showed up, and it was a lot of
People
fun.
said good things about us
Yes.
in there in the survey.
Because we got asked back again to present again,
But we also got asked
to write an article based on our clinic, and we wrote it, and we submitted it, and they said thank you, and we never heard it from them again.
Right.
And about 3 weeks ago,
like a month
Month
ago
ago.
at this point. Yeah.
The editor of the Southwestern Musician, Miss Karen Cross, emailed me, and the email started off with, "I bet you're surprised to be hearing from me, but we would love to publish your article." And so we did some rewrites on it, and they asked for us to take pictures. And so in November,
The November issue.
of the Southwestern Musician, you can read
Our
our article on how to grow and cultivate your small school band.
And see pictures we took.
Yes, and see our gnarly band hall.
Oh yeah, it's
Because,
terrible.
oh
y'all.
man, marching season. And they wanted concert pictures, so we took some pictures of some beginner stuff. We took some pictures of high school band, and we took some pictures of junior high band. And so they took one picture of high school band, one picture of junior high band. Our band hall was built in the 80s.
Well, and right now we're in the middle of construction, and so we lost all of our storage space.
So
when
everything is on
construction
top
started.
of us.
Right, yeah. We have no storage space in our band hall, so everything is just in the band hall.
And
And so it looks like it's a mess, but
it's really not.
It's really not.
It's about as
just,
organized
it's
as it
just
can be.
cluttered.
And we have, and if your band hall has the dreaded Technum on
The
the
ramen
walls,
noodles on
yeah,
the
we
wall.
call it the ramen noodles. That's what we tell kids it is we just put ramen noodles up on the wall. And then, of course, they immediately ask, well, can we eat it? And, yeah, our kids they're wonderful. We love them. So we have this Technum on the walls, and if you have Technum in your band hall, you know that it sheds worse than a corgi. And so it just kind of falls to the ground. I'm sure there's asbestos and all that kind of stuff in it. And you just have to sweep it up and go on. So that's covering our walls. And now they are in the process of building us a new band hall that is going to be open.
Hopefully in the next couple of months.
Yeah, well, December, the 2 weeks before, beginning of December, actually.
Oh, really? They
yeah,
moved it up?
yeah, it's 2 weeks before we get out, so that would put it the first full
have,
week in
like,
December.
Air conditioning in there now.
They
and
do,
Some
yeah.
lights and some cabinetry.
And you know how like they show when you think construction, you think people in hard hats. Yes, all the people working in that position have a hard hat, but us in Beckville, we just walk in,
Right.
no hard hat. And matter
Josh
of fact,
said all he wanted was a hard hat.
that
and
said the king on the back of it. That's
Right.
all I wanted.
that nobody has hard hats.
Nobody
so.
had hard hats. Yeah, our superintendent's like, hard hat? You're a weirdo. Matter of fact, this summer, he took me, he wanted to go show me around. Now I just walk in. Like at Tuesday night, we have rehearsal. After Tuesday night rehearsal's on, to give the kids a chance to get out of the band hall, so I'm not sitting there answering like a million questions. We will sneak into the construction site. And it's really not that hard to get in. And always see what they've done. And we've got dimmable lights.
Yeah, isn't that
It's
crazy?
crazy. Like we have like mood lighting in the office. It's kind of weird. But they've hung cabinets and things like that, which is pretty exciting. And the band hall's the biggest space in all of these rooms, and so they house all the major stuff in the band hall before they ship it out. So like right now there are probably 8 foot by 8 foot tall, covering about a third of the band hall of those ceiling tiles, those square ceiling tiles. So they're installing those in the drop ceilings and all that kind of stuff. But we're looking forward to it, and it's exciting to see stuff get done every week and sneak in and
It's
see.
exciting to see our design come to life. Really.
Yes, which in all honesty, it's probably as much more Michelle's as mine, because they did a basic design and they brought it to us, and then Michelle said, "Hold on a minute," and she went and got a pencil and she said, "No," and she just went to town on it, marked it all up.
But then we got to go and meet with the architect and
Yes.
talk about those things.
The
and
things that we wanted.
He was able to change a lot of it for us. So.
And because right now our band hall, our office is attached to our music library that is like a hallway closet, and then we have an instrument maintenance room / all our crap room that our own kids think is their personal locker. And so we have all of that connected. Well, in this new space, we have an office that actually will fit both of us, because right now we're back to back. It's not very much room.
It's more like a
It's
closet than
small,
an
yeah.
office.
And so, and there's a stairwell, like there's a sloped ceiling down
Right,
that I
which
hit my head on all
yeah,
the time.
It takes away the space.
And we have the copy machine in our office, so it's like all right there. So now we have our office, and then across the hall,
We'll have a
we
library.
have a library that has
And
the
that's
copy
where the
machine,
copy machine
and that's
goes.
exciting. And then we have another instrument maintenance room, but it is bigger.
Right.
It's actually about the size of our office now.
Right.
And then we have a percussion storage room, and I am the most excited about that room because it's really big and it's got cabinets and
Yeah, because
space.
right now we have nowhere.
No,
to store
our percussion just lives wherever it lives, and that's always fun. Now, the thing about that room that blows my mind, though, is there is roof access in that room. So they put a ladder that goes all the way up to the ceiling.
It's as if somebody said, "What would the best place to put the roof access?"
The drummer room.
We should put it where the drummers are.
Yeah, because they're
makes
gonna.
all the sense in the world.
Yes, and so I saw that my principal and I were walking through, and I said, "Yeah, you're gonna have to want to put a lock on something, so that way they don't decide they want to, relive Die Hard from the ceiling or the roof or something like that, or figure out how high is that, things percussionists think about, I guess.
Right.
I mean, I guess the only thing that could be worse is if we had a trombone storage room and you put it in there, because they'd break the lock. So that's been a exciting time waiting for our band hall to be built. But going back to, so we've gone down this rabbit hole.
Of mischievous percussionists.
Yeah. Speaking of, we wanted to talk this episode about classroom management. And it is something that I think, looking back on when I first started teaching, I was not good. I remember I remember my first year teaching. I had a 7th grade band, and my band director that was my mentor, that band, he was there for like a week, and then he was like, "All right, peace," and he gone. I had 15, 17 kids. It wasn't very many, and they were holy terrors. What's funny is one of them now works for, he's a clerk or an aide for a politician, a big politician in Austin. One of my trumpet players from my first year of teaching. Yeah. But I distinctly remember one time I had a student call me a curse word, and I blacked out. And then all of a sudden I was back in rehearsal. And I blacked out. And all of a sudden I was back in rehearsal. Well, apparently what I did was I took this kid to the office, and in where I taught in DCAB, the band hall was like the old locker room. Like my office is where the showers were. It was really weird, and there was carpet on the wall. It was,
the whole place smelled like mildew.
It needed to be
terrible.
burnt. It's still there. I assume they still use it, but
I don't know.
it needs to. I need to ask the directors there if it's still there. But they put a new roof on it, and they called it good, and they put a ramp on it, so it'd be ADA.
Handicap accessible.
But I remember the principal telling me, "We saw you walking that child to the office, and he was barely touching the ground. Like I had him by the scruff of the neck, and I took him and I set him in a chair, and I said, 'Your turn,' and I left." And that child never, ever acted up in my band again after that. But there's so many ways now that I wish I would have handled it that way.
Right. Well,
because I left all the kids in the room.
By themselves.
They were horrible. Like,
and
these
you
kids.
Left them.
Yes. And
what was wrong with you?
I don't know. But they, as a group, they were horrible. There were very sweet kids in that class. Don't get me wrong.
I get that.
I'm still Facebook friends with some of them. But yeah,
and
it was crazy. Now the second year, when they were all mine, it was a little different. And they were a lot more fun. I had 21 in that 7th grade band. Little bitty band. But some of the things that we do, classroom management is about being proactive.
Right.
Not reactive.
For sure.
Because reactive can come off as snarkiness and sarcasm. Now,
hateful.
They tell you never to teach with sarcasm. I do not follow that rule. But I don't use it negatively, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't think I teach with sarcasm. I think my personality can be sarcastic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because sometimes when you have a kid that pops off at the mouth, it's just easier to. Now, this doesn't happen very often, but we have a particular student that will come in and try to push our buttons, so we just kind of push right back at him. But he's a special kind of kid.
Yeah.
He really is, and he's very kind-hearted.
With him, you have to have a quick quip.
Yes.
To earn his respect.
Yes, and he is very brilliant. And he can dish them out faster than I can. But you never want to be in that situation. And so some things that we do to be proactive really start at the beginner level. Now, if you're in a new district and these are things that you would do the first day or in preparation for the first day, the main thing that is a necessity with any approach that you make is it has to be consistent.
Consistency is the key to all of your classroom management stuff. You have to treat every single kid exactly the same.
Yes, and I had who was it? I think it was an athletic director that told me it was Buddy. You remember Buddy? I love Buddy. He was a nice guy. He said you have to make every rule as if it were for your best student.
Yep.
And you have to hold them accountable to those rules. Because kids know if a kid gets treated differently than another one.
Yeah.
And sometimes, now that doesn't mean that you follow the rule the same way, in that you're not more stern with this student, but there's been times where I've had good kids break the rules and I've had to go, listen, this is the consequence. And I'm not mean about it. I'm just matter of fact, this is what we have decided on and this is what we're going to do. But I've also noticed that in preparing for and setting those expectations at the beginning, we have less of those.
Yeah.
We don't really have, knock on wood, knock on my head, that's about the closest thing to wood. I really don't think in the last 2 or 3 years we've had major incidents at all
Well,
that I can recall.
yeah, and usually if we have big problems, like we take the kids to the side and we have a conversation
Yes.
by themselves. We try not to address things to the full group.
And sometimes that
doesn't
means
affect the full group.
yeah. And sometimes it means putting a pin in it too, because you can be in the middle of the class and a student can do something and you can just naturally address, hey, when we get after class today, why don't you stick around and just keep going. And that does two things. One, it lets them know that something's not up, and two, it lets them think about what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes
That's enough.
especially with, I've done that on Friday nights at games where a student has done something, made a poor decision, not done something bad, but made a poor decision, and I'll go, you know what, we'll deal with that on Monday. And by the time the Monday comes, that poor child is like, they're expecting
They've
me to
punished
just,
themselves
yes,
enough worrying about what's going to happen.
and whatever you do is not really going to change, matter. Whatever the consequence is, they've worked it up in their mind to where it's going to be something far worse, probably. Also, that doesn't happen a lot.
Well, and I feel like here's the other thing. Your kids have to know that you care about them.
Oh, yes.
And when they know that you care about them, you have less discipline problems.
Now, I love watching teacher TikTok things. And I just got on TikTok like this year. Like I just kind of ignored all of it, and then I saw it this summer, got into it, and now I'm like obsessed. But there's a principal that really makes fun of other principals that say, "Did you build a relationship with that child? I think you need to build a relationship with that child." It's not as formal as it sounds.
Right.
And it's just being yourself with that child, and your personality can come through, whether you're awkward or goofy. I'm extremely goofy,
And I'm extremely awkward.
yes, but we have good relationships with our kids from 6th grade all the way up, and we let them know who we are in the beginning, and we don't try to be something that we're not. And it's easy, and I've seen young directors, particularly young directors that are head directors, and they try to act all stoic and I know everything and I'm the boss and I make the rules, and very sort of almost like a dictator, maybe a little bit. And I've been guilty of that, especially early in my career. This is the way it's going to be, and you're going to follow my rules, and that's all it's going to be. I'm not that way now. I don't think.
No,
Michelle's being awfully quiet though.
you're not that way.
It's
I
just
mean,
a matter of
Yeah, I just think it's having very, very clear expectations
Mhm.
and then following through with those expectations and having those relationships with the kids so that they know what to expect and they understand how you're going to handle things. Like, for instance, I don't really yell in my band class.
she doesn't
So
at all.
if I do get to the point where I am raising my voice, my kids are like, "Oh man, this is not good," you know.
I'm like, oh man, this is not good.
And so, like, having at that point, they know, okay, we've gone too far, and they're able to fix their stuff. You know,
Mhm.
If I get to the point where I'm yelling, they know that they've messed up because I don't yell. Now, that's not always been the case. If you ask some of my kids from my very first couple years teaching, they'd be like, all she did was yell.
Oh yeah, that's what
Um,
I remember a student when I taught in Carlisle coming into my office and going, oh, Salema came in and she said, Mr. King, and she closed the door. She said, we need to have a talk. And I said, what? And she goes, you yell too much. And I went, what do you mean? And she said, you just yell all the time. You yell. We're worried you're going to have a heart attack. And so
That's so sweet. We're worried you're gonna have a
yeah,
heart
they were
attack.
worried about me. They weren't worried about, and you know how
Meanwhile,
you
fast forward to this year,
Yeah.
we had a kid that graduated a few years ago come back and
Mhm.
watched rehearsal, and he was like,
Oh
"Bunny,
yeah.
like you're not yelling at them enough. You're not getting mean enough with them.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And so
And a
I
lot of
think we both
time,
chilled out a bit.
maybe. I wonder why. Beats me.
Older, wiser. I
Older,
don't know.
wiser. I don't know. Balder. I'm balder.
I am not.
I am. But it's just a matter of setting those expectations in the beginning. And we start with our beginners. Our beginners, if they don't come in the room correctly, guess what? We're going out and coming back in.
Right.
It doesn't happen a
And
lot.
honestly, even at this point in the year, like if we have to send them to their rehearsal spot and go take care of something really quick, when we come back in, they're ready to start class because they know what the expectations are, and they've already set themselves up for what needs to happen next.
Something that I love, and I started doing this last year with my percussion, is I give them, after we do rhythm, because we do all that together, we separate, and I say, okay, we're setting up for mallets today. And they know exactly what the expectation is to set up. So when I walk in that room and I give them about a 3-minute head start, they're not goofing off. They're set and ready to go. And it works. It works every time.
For 7th grade band, if we split, which we do
Mhm.
quite a bit in the fall,
Mhm.
like I'm taking roll, trying to get roll in, and my woodwinds have gone into the auditorium and they've got their self set up. Whether the setup is done for them or not, they do the setup,
Mhm.
and they've got the metronome on, and they're getting ready to pass off rhythms or tetras. Like they're ready for that stuff.
Mhm.
When I get in there after I finish roll.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think our kids are trained. They know
Yeah.
they know what to do.
And if they don't live up to the expectation, you have to tell them immediately.
Right.
This can't be okay, guys, it's the end of class.
They
Let me
need
just tell you, no.
They need immediate feedback on what
Yes.
they need to do better.
Just like what you do when you teach.
Right.
Kid plays a line, you give them feedback, move on. It's the same thing. You give them feedback on how they came in the room. If it was not to your satisfaction, or even if it was, if they had a bad day the day before, make sure they know they had a good day. And move on. Don't dwell on it. Just move
remember
on.
that kids will do whatever you let them get away with.
Yes.
So, like, if you allow them to talk while you're talking, they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you allow them to
Sit with bad
sit
posture.
with bad posture, they're going to do that. You have to define and demand. Thank you, Melody and Mallow.
Yes.
You have to define what you want, and then demand that they're doing what you want.
Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of ways that you can address, like, talking in your rehearsals. I use the old standby of, I'll wait. We'll get there eventually, but I'll wait. And it works. It works for me.
I do that, like I'm giving instructions, and then I'll go, "Do you understand that?" And I'll say the name of the kid
Yes.
who's talking.
Michelle
to,
shoots to
like-
kill. That's what she
Well,
does.
I mean, just to like snap them to attention. Like,
Mhm.
okay, she notices that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, and I don't.
Mhm.
That's all I have to do. Like, I don't have to say anything else. They
Yeah.
know that if I say their name, then they're not doing what they should be doing, and they're
Mhm.
able to fix it.
But whatever approach you use, as long as it's consistent, that's what they'll come to expect. And even our high school band, and the main thing is you want to know how they're going to act in different situations, because even though it's classroom management, that includes areas outside of the classroom. And high school bands typically travel quite a bit. I want to know that I can take my high school band somewhere and they can do the right thing 95% of the time.
Well, and that's something we talk about quite a bit is integrity,
Mm-hmm.
doing the right thing when nobody's watching.
Yes. And I'd like to think, and everywhere I've taught, I've held the kids to the same standard. Now, have all the bands lived up to that standard? Not necessarily. Have I had a few knuckleheads? Yes. Have I had to call mom and say, hey, you need to come pick up your child from such and such? I'll wait for you. Yes, that's happened before. But not very often. It's very, very rare that happens. And the students where we teach now in small school, and this is kind of a benefit of small school, we don't have hundreds of kids. We know every kid's first and last name. We know their parent. We don't have a problem calling their parent because we talk on a regular basis. So there's no...
Well, and also the benefit of having kids in the school too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we know a lot of the parents because their kids are friends with our kids, or
Yeah.
they know our kids.
And so it's just a matter of keeping that network. Because, yeah, you're creating relationships. I don't have the same relationship with every kid. And
True.
And some of them
And
feel comfortable,
there are kids that have better relationships with Josh than they have for me, or
and
better
vice versa.
relationships with me than they have with Josh. It just depends on the kid.
Yeah.
And how your personalities mesh, really.
This is true. We have a large contingent of students that eat lunch in our office every single day.
Drive me crazy.
I don't mind it, as long as they clean up
They
after
make
themselves.
the office stinky.
What?
Not because they're stinky, but because their food is stinky.
I don't know. There's a couple in there that sometimes stink.
Our
Their
own
names
children.
are Aiden or Noah. Yeah, Aiden and Noah King. But they come in. That is their comfortable. That is their happy place. That is their safe space. And I enjoy being able to do that for them. We do have some students that don't feel comfortable hanging out in the band hall all the time. We have some students that, there's one in particular that I think of that our relationship is not, it's me starting the conversation. That student is never going to start a conversation with me. But I always try to start a conversation with that student to make her feel comfortable, to let her know she's got a support system at school, and she's very, very quiet.
Super shy.
Yeah. And right now, she's a cross-country runner, and she got first place at district, JV district, and so I call her my number one runner. And every time I say it to her, she smiles, and I know that I have made that connection, and that's a positive experience for her.
She knows that we care about something that she's doing outside
Yes.
of band, which is a big deal.
And her personality is one that if you didn't know her, you'd probably think she was maybe being rude or a little biting, because she's very to the point.
Yes.
And I like those kind of kids. I want a kid that's going to just get right to the point with me and not beat around the bush. And I appreciate that. And so I enjoy, building that relationship, as I do with all my students. But that is probably the biggest thing with creating your classroom culture. And that's part of it too, is your classroom the one the kids enjoy coming to on a daily basis?
Right. And a lot of, having a good culture, I mean, the discipline and the classroom management kind of takes care of itself when you've created that positive culture in the classroom.
And don't be afraid to try new things either. If something's not working, just try something else.
Right.
Don't be afraid too, if you are a young teacher and you do not have a mentor. And I'm not talking about like your head director, because a lot of times head directors have way more duties than you know. And I didn't realize that till I became a head director. And the amount of paperwork that comes with that, the planning is insane. And so if you feel like you're not getting the attention you need, seek an outside mentor.
And invite them into your classroom.
Yes.
And just not to teach for you, but just to watch you teach and watch how you interact with the kids in the classroom and see what things you could do better and what things you're doing well and how you can, adjust what you're doing to be the most successful.
And in some cases, that may not need to be your principal.
I would say it probably doesn't need to be your principal.
Because they don't understand, unless they were a music educator, they don't understand what you do.
I think it's important to find somebody in the band world or the music world to come in and watch you. I mean, your principal is going to know a lot, but I'm just going to be honest. I've never had a principal that has come in and gone, I understand exactly what you do, and I think it's really great. Most of them are going, I have no idea what you do. In fact, I had a principal one time who, he said, I have no idea what I'm supposed to look for in your evaluation, so I'm just going to have the head band director do your evaluation. Yeah. I mean, and I honestly, other than that, I cannot remember the last time I was evaluated.
I don't remember when I was last evaluated.
I mean,
either.
I feel like you're off the evaluation schedule because you're administration now.
Well, and really, UIL ratings are my
That's true.
evaluation. And as long as I bring home to ones, they're happy.
But then I also had she was the assistant principal, and she came in and watched me teach one time, and she was just amazed and singing my praises and talking about how she didn't understand how I could get that many kids, on the same page doing the same thing all at the same time, and was singing my praises to anybody who would listen. So it just depends on, I guess, how open their mind is to what you're doing, and if they can watch you with an open mind rather than, this is a tangent. We got off on a tangent.
I don't think so. Now, if you're looking for a mentor and you don't, like East Texas, we have a list of mentors, and there's a bunch of them. I'm hoping we could interview some of them in the future.
Yeah, that would be a good podcast.
Because I'd love to get their thoughts on things questions I've never asked them. Because we have 2 or 3 that come to us regularly and sit in our rehearsals. If you're in Texas, you can take advantage of the Texas Music Educator Association's Mentor Network, and it's 100% free. You go and you put in your information. They will set you up with a mentor, and it's a volunteer thing. So if you are a master teacher and you've been doing it for a while, or you're retired, and you enjoyed the experience and you want to help, go online and sign up to become a mentor. If you are a new teacher and you're feeling overwhelmed, especially if you are in a small school, a lot of times small schools have 1 director or 2 directors. Sign up for a mentor if you don't know where to start.
It can feel overwhelming if you don't have somebody there saying, yes, you're doing the right things, or, hey, let's see if we can do this better.
Yeah.
It's important to have somebody.
And then when they come, listen to them. Listen to them. You're not going to feel like you're a rock star, probably. And I say that not in a bad way, because I think to some extent growth requires a little bit of self-reflection.
It's going to make you feel uncomfortable.
It is. Matter of fact, I remember when because we haven't always used mentors, and I feel stupid for not getting started sooner. But when Michelle was at Carthage and they had their mentor come in, it was like the day before was always like, oh, it's tomorrow's D-Day. It's stressing me out already, and it always turned out to be
a positive
experience. Do you get put back in your place sometimes? Yeah, I mean, but that's with anything. But
it's like eating your vegetables.
Yes,
you're not always gonna like it, but it's
gonna
good
make
for
you better. And then try to find a mentor too if you have options that sort of fit your personality.
Right. You wanna have somebody that you feel comfortable enough to hear the difficult things.
Yes.
And that you're going to take what they have to say and not be like, oh, that person doesn't really know what they're talking about. Because, occasionally that has happened too.
Oh, yeah.
Had somebody come in and maybe it's not somebody we're as comfortable with, and they've said some things that we kind of disagreed with. And so you want to find somebody who you really, really trust and you really feel comfortable with.
And that will also help in preparation for your festivals and things like that. You'll have somebody to come in to be an extra set of ears that you trust, that's maybe not on your staff, that doesn't hear it every single day.
Yeah, because at this point, I know where to look. I know what to listen for.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to have somebody who's not listening for those problem places or not looking for those problem places. Maybe they're not noticing it. Maybe it's not as big of a deal as you thought it was.
That happens to me all the time.
Maybe you've got bogged down in a problem and you've missed other problems because of it.
Yes. That also happens to me quite a bit as well.
This really is a tangent. None of this is about classroom management right now.
No, but I think bringing in a mentor, I'll tie this up in a bow. I think bringing in a mentor helps with your classroom management, because they'll be able to sit and look and watch and go, all right, this is you need to be a little bit more sterner. You need to hold them to the standard. You set the standard, but you're not holding them to the standard.
Right. You can't just say. You have to
do.
You have to, actually
put your money where your mouth is, I guess.
Or get your head out of the score and look at what the kids are actually doing.
It's important to have those people in your rehearsals to help you with all the things, but classroom management is a big part of that. Let me just say that I think that band directors tend to have the best classroom management, and it's because we're used to dealing with large groups of students.
Right.
Whereas a teacher with a class of 25, or 25 is a huge class.
Right.
But, or 25 or less students, it's not exactly the same as what dynamic we create in a band hall.
True.
Those students are, that may be just students in their grade. And here's the best part of being a band director. I don't care what anybody says. We get to pick our kids. We don't have to teach everybody. Now, we teach all the 6th graders, but they don't always make it to 7th grade. So all those different personalities melding together, working together, we get to see that, and nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could say, well, there's the football team, or there's the volleyball team, or but those are gender specific. We have all genders, all different kinds of students, all different ages. Like, we're the only organization on the campus that has 8th grade and seniors in it together, that travel together and do things together.
And are friends.
And are friends, and have those relationships built. So our classroom management a lot of times relies on our upper students to help sort of toe the line and keep the other ones in check. Although our 8th graders this year sometimes have to keep the older kids in check.
Right, do better than the older kids.
They do, and they'll point them out. Oh, you know. But I think that's a big part of it too. We have that opportunity, and it's very much an opportunity and a gift to be able to do what we do. And so most band directors I've seen in my lifetime that I've gotten to observe have wonderful classroom management. So there you go. That we just kind of danced all the way around it. If you have any questions about classroom management or anything specifically that we do, we didn't talk about super specific things. If you'd like to see an episode where we do talk about specific things, we can. There are some specific things that we do that we think work for us, but those are the big main ideas that really fuel every way that we approach what we do. That being said, thank you so much for listening. Check us out on Facebook. We hope to hear from you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Little Bandology. You can reach us on our Facebook page or email us at littlebandology@gmail.com.